I was a little worried that if I told you too many things, it might look like you need to have to do all those things. But hopefully the takeaway is that you can, you can actually do it with a minimum of stuff. But right now I want to introduce Jerry, who is going to be our tech host.
Thank you, Wendy. And yeah, I just wanted to say for those of you who don't know, GAP is the Guild of American Papercutters. We welcome members from all over the world and include both amateur and professional artists, as well as collectors and anyone interested in paper art. And we put out a professionally edited monthly paper cutting newsletter called First Cut. These newsletters, which used to be quarterly, have been published since our founding in 1988, and they have contributions from our members and information about events and exhibits around the world. They're a really good historical resource, actually, and also a good crafting and art resource. The newsletter archives contain a lot of articles of interest to paper cut artists and collectors and designers. Every 2 years or so, we have sponsored an in-person conference. Our next conference, Randall was speaking about, is this year in North Carolina. And we also regularly sponsor curated member exhibits at our National Museum in Somerset, Pennsylvania, which is the only museum, I believe, in the United States that's devoted to paper cutting art and paper art generally. Our website is papercutters.org. We're on Instagram and Facebook also, so you can follow us. And thanks very much to our grantors, the Maxwell Hanrahan Foundation, the Community Foundation for the Alleghenies, and the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts for sponsoring a lot of what we're doing right now with these free workshops, and also with the Teachers Awards, and as Randall was mentioning, the conference and the exhibit. Randall Williams is our current president of the of GAP, and Randall, do you want to say a word before I shut up?
Oh, I thought you were doing beautifully. Welcome to all. Some of you are longtime members, some of you are new members, some of you are considering membership. I hope that everybody's able to get something out of this workshop. Like I said, we're really, we want to increase the pool of people who are considering being a workshop teacher, because I think we can all benefit from each other's knowledge. And there's a broad diversity of paper cutting styles, techniques, and experience out there, and we'd love to hear from everybody. So I would just like to highlight what Jerry was saying, is that that's part of the beauty of the Guild of American Papercutters, is that we're not dedicated professionals, we're not dedicated to hobbyists. We run the gamut of trying to provide quality programming for everybody who has any interest in paper cutting.
That's awesome. Thank you so much to Gap. I just have to throw that out there that I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity. So let's get into it, shall we? Learning to do online art workshops, and as I've said, this is just the way I do it. It's not necessarily the be all to end all, but you hopefully will come away from this with some tips and tricks. If you can find a couple things to jot down and say, hey, I hadn't thought of that, then I feel like I will have done a successful job here. But I'm Wendy Bale. I'm a nature artist, and I work mostly in paper, of course, because I'm a member of the Guild of American Papercutters, and I also do work in ceramics and do some drawing and painting. And I occasionally teach workshops. All of my workshops have been paper workshops because they seem to lend themselves really, really easily to this. And I do them both online and in person. In fact, last summer I did one at the museum, the Guild of American Papercutters National Museum in Somerset, Pennsylvania. And that was a super fun experience. How did I get into doing this? Well, I got sort of railroaded into doing workshops. I had no interest in doing workshops. I was actually pretty terrified. My mom had told me that I really should be an art teacher because I like doing art, and I was terrified of children. So I thought that was a really bad idea. So I kind of got to the point where Later in life, I had some things I wouldn't mind sharing, but yet I really didn't want to do it. But I ended up having people sort of force me into it. I had a friend of mine saying she was going to have some people come over and I was going to give them a workshop. And I was like, okay. But if you are, excited about your subject and have something that you're willing to share with other people, I think you would find it really rewarding to share it in this format. And there's just a few little tips and tricks that I can share today to try and help you out a little bit. My takeaway on this that I want you to have is that if I can do it, anybody can do this, because it's not something that I was naturally attracted to teaching, but it can be done. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to dive into teaching online. I'm going to give you the basic requirements to get you in front of an audience. So teach what you know, pick your topic, and decide how you're going to present it. I'm going to talk a little bit about collaboration, tap into your network to help with marketing and presenting. And we're going to prepare your presentation and your lesson plan so that you have a stress-free experience doing this. A little bit about tech talk, not a lot, but we'll talk about setting up lights, camera, and how to get comfortable with the lay of the land. And then we're going to find a way to have fun while running a smooth, relaxed online workshop. So that's our objective for today. This presentation that you're looking at is going to be available as a PDF, and it's going to get sent to you afterwards. So don't feel like you have to be taking any notes today unless there's something that comes to mind that you want to make sure to remember. But it also, you will get a chance to have this recording. So you have a chance to go ahead and kind of just sit back and relax and take it in, and then later on you can dive into some of the details if you need to. I did want this to be this presentation that I made up. I want it to be kind of a standalone document as opposed to being an outline of what I'm going to do. So it's got a lot of details in it, some of which I may kind of skip over a little bit, but you can look at it in more detail later. We'll see how the timing goes. So you've got 3 basic requirements you need for doing a Zoom presentation. It doesn't really take that much to get started teaching an online art class. You have to have your project prototype. Obviously, you need something that you're going to teach. You need a stable internet connection. And one suggestion I have on that is, and I'm using it today in sort of a belt and suspenders kind of way, I really like to have an Ethernet cable, just because if it were storming or something and something would go bad, it's just nice to be hardwired in. But if you have a really rocking Wi-Fi, then you probably don't have to worry about that. You will need a pro Zoom account that'll let you have enough people in and go over 45 minutes. I think it only allows you with a free account. So, or the other thing you can do is have a tech host. Like today, we're actually using the Gap. We're using their version of Zoom, so I wouldn't necessarily need that myself. So there are some alternative platforms that you can do this on, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with this. For this discussion, we are just going to be focusing on Zoom, but there are lots of other video conferencing platforms. And then there's also webinars, which is a view-only platform where the attendees can't see each other, and the presenter can't see the attendees. So that's a little bit of a kind of a different feel to it. Whereas with Zoom, I think there's a little bit more of a connection with your audience. But there's Google Meet, Ring Central, which is a free one, StreamYard, and other alternatives for live streaming if you want to do webinars. But Zoom is really well rated best overall, and it's the one that I'm familiar with. So ultimately, I kind of like to just stick with what I'm familiar with. This is a lesson that I learned pretty early on. Selecting the topic and how to present it. I discovered before I kind of got a little bit more comfortable doing this, when I was asked to do this, this was like during the pandemic, there was, I had planned on doing an in-person workshop at a local library, but then they weren't able to have that. So they asked me if I could do it on Zoom. And I ended up giving, it was I think it was 3 or 4 different sessions that were like 2 hours apiece. So it was kind of a long thing. I ended up doing the whole thing on Zoom, which was a big learning experience because I discovered in the keep it simple uh, phrase. I mean, that I really needed to learn that because I did this really complicated project. In fact, it's on a later slide. I'll show you what it was. But I did an overly complicated project. And then later on, I taught them an easy thing. And the feedback I got was, you should have taught the easy thing because it was just it was way too complicated, and it was difficult, and people were getting behind, and I didn't know exactly how to, how to reach through the screen and help people. So my advice is to, keep it as simple as you can when you're picking out what projects you're going to do, and to allow extra time for people. And if you're going to be doing them online, picking a project that has easy to come by supplies and tools, or things that you can easily get to them if you want to supply the tools and the supplies. But we can talk about determining what your teaching style is, and then also just know what your audience's skill level is. Sometimes when I'm teaching to the guild, and I know that everybody's a paper cutter, that I kind of leave out all those really basic things because I know they already know those things. But just be aware of what your audience that you're aiming for, what they already know. So for your teaching style, you can do a lecture type thing, which is essentially what I'm doing today, which is not my favorite way to do this because it's really just all me talking. But I'd much rather be demonstrating doing some artwork. But it's the necessity today. So today you get a lecture, but you can do a step-by-step. You can maybe do things with prompts where you prompt people to do certain art projects. You can do just a straight up demonstration. That's a fascinating thing for people to look at and also ask questions about. Or you can do sort of a hybrid of those types of teaching styles.
Wendy,
Yeah, yep.
I hate to bog you down, but I think lecture is very clear. I think step by step is very clear. Demonstrations clear. What do you mean by prompts?
Prompts would be like if you told everyone, thank you for that question, actually. If you told everyone on Zoom that we are going to be doing something that was inspired by your childhood, let's say. And then, so everybody's doing something different. They're not necessarily doing, you just give them sort of a prompt to do an art thing without necessarily doing a step-by-step or a little bit, it's a little more free form that way. It gives people a chance to do sort of their own thing. Like, let's say today we're gonna do paper birds, and then everybody does their own bird, not necessarily the particular bird that I've got a template for. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You bet. And then of course you can do a hybrid of all of these. You can go in and start out with a little bit of a lecture, go into a demonstration, and then do a step-by-step. So it just depends on how you want to teach it, what you're comfortable with, and what's appropriate for the project that you're trying to teach. So I really think it's important to look at what other people are doing. If you go in and I'm trying to get used to my little guy here. Seek some insight and some originality. So take other artists' workshops. That's the best way to do it, because then you can see, oh, I like the way they did this, or I wish it was done differently, and that's the way I would do it. And just take note of what it is you like. Watch YouTube videos teaching something similar is a great one, because there might be a tip or trick that maybe you just do it naturally because you you do it without thinking about it, but it's a good idea to maybe mention it. And then, of course, you can attend webinars. Now, let's talk a little bit about monetizing your class, free versus paid. Um, Giving a free class is great because there's so much less pressure. You know, people don't necessarily have skin in the game, so they don't feel like they're going to be out anything if maybe you're not as smooth as they would like, or it's not, or they didn't get what they wanted out of it. And you can still do your best, but you know that you're just learning, and maybe this is the first time you've done a class, and you're just going to do it as a favor to somebody, or maybe teach some friends or something. You can, one thing I've done in the past is selling my class on my website. And the way I did that was I just put I'd made like a presentation with sort of a step-by-step. I made a document that had a template in it. And then I sold that on my website, and it had a link in it to the Zoom meeting. So that was kind of one way to be able to get a larger audience getting into my class, and yet they're actually just buying a template. um
Wendy,
Setting a price. Yes.
I was just going to ask, I know I watched your videos on Instagram long before I saw you teach, a class.
Right.
And you've been sharing things like all along. Do you have any thoughts on like you did a certain amount of stuff that was really just you, like for free, that you were telling people about, and then at a certain point, like it became more of you started doing regular workshops with paid members. Do you have any thoughts on that process, like a
Well, yeah, I think just getting the practice of doing things for free on either YouTube is actually really good for that, because it's longer form. um I did for about, I don't know, I did 100 videos. I did a weekly video and did 100 of them,
I
and then
remember.
decided I was really tired of doing that every week. And so I stopped doing them, but I think I might pick that up again. Um, but it gave me a lot of practice at presenting particular things. And then also, I think people who might be interested in having me teach a class could go and look at my YouTube and see it. It's a little different because with the YouTube ones, it's much more polished because it's not live. But it does give me, it probably did give me a chance to have some credibility. So when people wanted to potentially have me do a presentation, they could at least see sort of what my basic style was.
I most remember your night studio.
Yeah, I do like the spooky stuff with the ravens and the crows and the things that go bump in the night. But anyway, um, so thank you for pointing that out, because that's an aspect of it I hadn't really thought of. But yeah, I think doing those for free, I was just putting them out there. And you of course can go into monetizing things on YouTube and Instagram and whatnot, but that's kind of beyond the scope of what we're talking about today. But it is a good way to kind of get your feet wet. So setting a price, that is a tricky thing. You have to really kind of, it's going to widely depend on your topic, your audience, and you do have a larger audience with YouTube than you would, or excuse me, with Zoom than you would with, um, say, doing an in-person workshop. So you have a chance to give people a much lower price, assuming that you get more people to actually attend, to make it worth your while to do it. But like I said, I think doing the templates was a good way for me to to do that with my own. If you have a website that you can sell off of, that is one kind of way to get around that. But obviously, like what we're doing today, having a host organization collect the fees. In this case, it is free, but I am being paid because it's a grant. So doing the grants is a great way to offer the information out to the world without people having to actually pay extra for it. But it does give you a chance to learn a new skill, and I think it benefits everybody if we can get more people to present what they know. So the differences between doing an in-person versus teaching an online class. Um, this is a photograph of me over here um, teaching a class at a local gallery museum. And you'll notice that I've got a monitor here, and I was using that to actually demonstrate so that people could kind of see better. But the points that I want to make them on that are in-person teaching is easier to give one-on-one help. So you can like walk right over to a person and see they're struggling and you can give them some help. That's great. But it actually is easier to do the demos when you're doing it online, because you can switch over to your down camera and really show that demonstration, and people can see it up close. You can definitely, as I said before, reach a potentially broader audience online. I had about, I don't know, 17 or 18 people in this class. And, on Zoom, you can have, I think that the biggest one I've done on Zoom was maybe 70 or 80 people. And, so you can, which would be really unwieldy to do in person. That would be super difficult. But now the materials and supplies are definitely easier to supply in person. If you just walk in and hand everybody their supplies, that's a lot easier. But there is an advantage to simply having the participants providing their own. That's one of the things you want to keep in mind when you're picking your project. If you're picking something that's going to have some specialized item in it, just bear that in mind. Now, I know some people do hybrid classes, and you might want to consider teaching an in-person class and then have a Zoom camera set up for your online attendees. My personal experience with that is that it's really tricky to do that well. There may be others that can do that smoothly, but I think you are kind of dividing your attention between the two groups, and I think that might be a little bit tricky. Unless there's some compelling reason why you'd want to do it, I wouldn't recommend that one. Now, one way to lighten the load is to collaborate. And some of you may have been to some of my rock paper classes that I did with, and talking about, night studio. These were done in October, and we did ravens and flowers and skulls, and we had a really good time. So that is Molly in the picture right here, and she is Molly Gross. She is the owner of Rock Paper in Cincinnati. And she and I have never met, but we have collaborated online a bunch of times and have a really good time with that, because you can sort of take some of the pressure off yourself. The advantages to partnering with another artist or influencer to promote your courses and teach and reach new audiences. You can be a mentor to them if perhaps they have more experience or you have more experience. So if you're just trying to get into this, maybe partner up with somebody who has a little bit more experience at it than you do. And the other thing is your combined audience is going to be larger. So you have a mailing list and they have a mailing list, and you can get your information out to them that way. Twice as much, maybe more. There is, like I said, less pressure on you to do all of it, including the promotion. So, and there's something about promoting things that, like promoting yourself is one thing, but if you're promoting somebody else, it seems less braggy. So, so it's easier to say, "Oh, this is going to be really great because whatever." And if you're doing that about yourself, it can seem kind of less. I don't know. It's just nice to have somebody else talk you up, you know. Like if Jerry's going to say this is going to be a great class that Wendy's going to give, that sounds so much better than me going me, my great class. So I highly recommend having someone to collaborate with. It works out great. And plus you have a friendly face to interact with during the event. Like just right now, I just looked up at Jerry and kind of called out to her, and that kind of makes you, it gives you a feeling of having uh, a little someone's got your back, you know. You don't feel quite like you're just putting yourself out there as much. So now you might want to find a source to host your class. So look into art groups, clubs, guilds, like perhaps the Guild of American Papercutters. Another great one is public libraries, schools. You know, these places get grants that are, or, you know, they did. Let's hope that those things will still continue. But the grants have been a really great thing, particularly through libraries, because they will offer up, they'll say, you know, would you be able to do a to do something on an event they had on a particular topic or something. And if you have something that you can pull out and give that subject what they're looking for, and they do pay for those things. So that's a great thing to have available. Art supply dealers, that would be like Molly. And also partnering with a company whose materials you use. You might be able to find, if there's a particular, I use rock paper a lot, so that's how I ended up contacting Molly, and we got together to do that. But I initiated that by literally contacting her and asking her if she was interested in doing it. And then, of course, you can just do self-promotion, which I don't think you can do too much of. I mean, I think getting out there and letting people know what you're doing, you want to make sure that you let people know. You know, I put a little video together just the other day saying last call, you know, just to get people to come out here and watch this one that we're doing today. So
And it
it
worked.
is important to do that. What's that?
To say it worked because
Oh,
we
that's good.
had a few more people sign on, immediately. I
Yeah.
remember seeing your ad, and then that I also dropped Excel blades into the chat because they have also partnered with some of the artists in Gap before, if either for advertising demos or for classes, things like that.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I just recently started collaborating with Excel, so I'm really excited about it. I told you I might be doing some YouTube videos. I think I'm going to do some YouTube videos with them because they gave me a discount code for people to buy their product through my link, and then they'll get a discount. So I was pretty excited about that. Let's talk about Jerry. My top 10 reasons why I love having a tech host. You know, so a tech host on Zoom is a person who's designated to support the attendees and the presenter. So kind of a go between the two, which is incredibly helpful. So I'll quickly run through the things that a tech host can do. They can provide a number to call for login troubles. They can deal with audio and video issues. They can monitor the chat and answer basic questions for participants, which I know you've been doing that, Jerry. Draw your attention to questions that you may miss. So if somebody says something in the chat and I am not, like at this moment, I can't monitor the chat. So she can pay attention to that and let me know if there's something that has come up through that channel. Keep the presentation running efficiently with a time check. And we're going to have to be careful with that today because I don't
2:40.
actually know how long this is going to take. So we're going to do a couple time checks throughout to make sure that we don't go over on this. We're going to hope that Jerry will improve engagement with a large class. So if you have, if you've got 60, 70, 80 people on there and you want to make sure that everybody stays engaged, it does help to have that tech person. That's when it's really, really important. If you've got a smaller group, it's not as important, but when there's a large group, you definitely it can be a lot easier if you have a tech host. I know Jerry loves to add links and templates to the chat as needed. And she can mute and unmute and spotlight participants. Be an active part of the class without the distraction of making art. And I think this is the main thing, because I think if you have a tech host that says that they also want to participate in whatever project that you're working on, that might be something. If it's a small class, it'd be okay. But if it's a larger class, you might want to ask them to not do that, because it's too easy to get kind of bogged into what you're doing and not pay attention to what's happening on the screen. And they can, best of all, reduce your stress level so that you can concentrate on teaching. That is kind of the main thing. So I really do like having a tech host. So thank you, Jerry. Get the word out. Let's figure out how we're going to market this online class. You've already kind of figured out what it is you want to teach, and now let's figure out how to let people know about it. And in fact, before I get into the details on this one, I'll point out this here was the owl that I taught that was the complicated thing. And I didn't really think it was going to be that complicated, but for people that were not paper cutters, it was way too complicated. And then later I just did the basic feather, and they were much happier. So lesson learned. I have lots of experience with just bumbling through things and not doing them right, and then figuring out that's the lesson I need to learn. So you're going to create a graphic announcement in whatever app you're comfortable with, or if you aren't able to make it yourself, you can just provide a photo of yourself and your project along with a class description. And you can give that to the person who's hosting or collaborating with you. It doesn't have to be fancy. In fact, I chose this particular example because it's pretty simple. It's just that there's a workshop and some pictures of me and what the project is and some information about it. But make sure that you include the date and times for multiple time zones, because you're going across many time zones as we are today. And explain how to register to get your Zoom link, and list where to get more information, and then post this on social media in your Facebook groups, and send out in newsletters. Any way that you're communicating with your audience, get that out there, and try and get it out like a month. Start really working on this about a month ahead, and allow yourself some weeks to build up to this. Try not to do it too quickly. Be careful with Facebook events. They can be confusing because people can think that just by signing up for the event that they will be signed up to be on this Zoom thing. So that can be a little confusing. I kind of avoid the Facebook events for that reason. This particular presentation that you're looking at today is an example of a Canva template that I put together. So this Canva is a free app, and there are many templates for creating graphics. So I highly recommend that.
Wendy,
And
have you, I was just going to ask, have you used Eventbrite? I'm putting this in because some people do use it, especially if you're not affiliated with another group that's sponsoring you and you need a page to get registered, or
yep,
and do it through your website.
I have never done that for my own, but I have signed up on Eventbrite for other classes numerous times. That's a good one. That's a good one to add in, and we can have everybody save that. I'll have to remember to have everybody save the chat at the end because those are some good links to have. So just in looking at this, this was actually and this was supposed to be my this was the class that was supposed to be in person and ended up being a Zoom class, so it's a little bit different, but I think it has all of the elements you need. I think people really like to see a person's face. You can only see half my face here, but having it there, I think, is important. People can connect with that. And then a clear picture of what your project is. In this case, it was the owl and the feather. And then having it very, very clear, the date and the dates and how to sign up for it. Those are just the very most basic things to make sure that you have so that you have it all set up in a really easy to understand graphic. Now this I'm calling this my do and don't slide. This is some examples of, these are my own examples, so I'm not picking on anybody but myself here. But before I show you these two, I did attend a workshop not too long ago, like last summer sometime, and the woman that had done the workshop had a very beautiful graphic, and it had absolutely nothing to do with what the workshop was about. It was gorgeous, and people actually thought that they were going to be creating something that looked like this gorgeous thing that was on the advertising for it. And then we all got there, and all of a sudden the whole class kind of broke down right at the beginning, and I felt really bad for the person who was doing this class, because she was just trying to have this fun graphic, and then everybody thought, well, I thought that's what we were making, and it had absolutely zero to do with what the class was really about. So you have to be really, really simple. Like if you look at this one on the left, it's like learn how to make paper feathers. Very, very simple. And the details for the registration and all of that were actually posted in the description. You don't necessarily have to put, depending on how it is, you don't have to put all that stuff in the description. So this is a nice, simple, like we're going to do it with some scissors. We're going to make something like this.
I love how that one also has like a lot of white space to it. You know,
Right.
people sometimes don't think about that, but it makes it look very free and airy and like, oh yeah, I'd like to do that, you know?
And your eye knows right where to go.
Yeah.
Now, contrast that with this one. And this was actually an in-person class, but it demonstrates the problem that I had. So I got into this whole spooky idea of Pose the Raven, and I found this great graphic with this book and the spooky stuff coming out of it. We were doing a collage workshop. You would never really know that from looking at this. You might think it was a book club. But so I gave this information all had to be added in later, because I had originally, when I provided this to the library that was doing this class for me, I thought it was going to just be this, and then everything was going to be explained below. But no, they wanted all of this in the graphic. So we ended up having to tell how to register for this art project celebrating Edgar Allan Poe's famous poem, and to stop by the front desk and all of this stuff. It became really cryptic and busy, and didn't grab the attention the way I would have liked it to. And so, this was my lesson that I've learned by making these mistakes. But I'm happy to report that the people that took that class, it was a full class, and everybody had a good time, and it worked out all right in the end. But it was, in my opinion, kind of a less than perfect graphic to get them there. Let's talk about putting together your lesson plan. Now, I know I have some actual real teachers that are here, and I should like to point out that I'm not a trained educator.
You're a real
And
teacher, stop.
because remember, I thought kids were scary. So, I am not a trained teacher, but I have learned from doing a bunch of these classes how to kind of put together an organized lesson plan. And I might be a little bit over the top in the organized end of it. And there are other people that maybe like to be a little bit more free and easy and loose about it, and that's awesome. I'm impressed because I kind of have to always feel like I have got everything really, really well planned out. But that's just me. So anyway, we in crafting this, let's talk about sort of the steps to go through. So outline what you plan to teach, jot down the basics, and then you're going to flesh out somewhat of a script. And a script doesn't necessarily mean you're going to say every word, but it's not like you necessarily want to read it, but you can at least have an idea what you want to cover so that you don't miss things. So if you're teaching a step-by-step thing, jot down the steps as you make a prototype is a really good way to kind of figure that out. So like make your prototype, say, yes, I want to teach this, and then make another one. And while you're making it, jot down your steps so that you don't kind of gloss over something that was important. If you're doing a demo, consider creating some partially done pieces ahead of time so that you don't actually have to demo the entire thing. So like if I'm demoing a feather, I'll have if I'm teaching how to make a paper feather, I'll have 5 or 6 different feathers at various stages of doneness so that I can kind of whip out one that is at the right stage rather than having to have them sit there and watch me do the actual demo. Time management, be prepared for some of the students to take twice as long as you do. And twice as long is just a guess. I never know. I mean, sometimes people take a really long time and sometimes people get ahead. Everybody's different, and you're going to have, if you have a class of people, they'll all be at different stages. Nobody's going to be at exactly that same stage. So you have to kind of prepare for that a little bit. Print out the plan to refer to while you're practicing and then make revisions. And then use that plan to guide your instructions during the class. So this is my quote from Abe Lincoln here. It was, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. And that is in reference to me over planning this. I mean, I have spent hours and hours and hours and hours planning this class. It's going to take 2 hours. And, so I just like to be really well prepared. I think it makes me feel more comfortable. All right, let's talk a little bit about templates and downloads that you can provide for your students. The templates don't have to be fancy, but you want to prepare your visual aids. Use images, presentations, and diagrams to illustrate the key concepts and enhance understanding. So with templates, if you're doing something where you want to provide a template for people, put them in whatever program that you are comfortable with. Now, if you don't have a drawing program that you want to use, I have been known, and I chose this one as my example because I literally drew this out on a piece of tracing paper, and then I took a photograph of it and then made a printout of it and put that into my document that I was going to use. It's literally nothing fancy at all. These are like hand done, the whole thing. I did add a little bit of text in there, but it doesn't have to be difficult or fancy. You might want to give it to a friend to try out and see if there's any bugs. If one thing I learned was, don't have important things outside of the template. If it's important that part A is listed on there, have it inside the template so that they don't cut it out and then not have that reference. And I found that out by having a friend do it. And also be sure that your template is going to print out at the size that is needed, because that can be a problem if you've reduced it to put it in your document, and then when they actually print it out, it's way small, or something that isn't gonna work for what you're actually trying to teach. So make sure that it's printed out at the proper size at 100%, or if it needs to be printed at a different size, you at least indicate that. Instructions are optional. Um, I use them to make sure I use them for myself so that I don't miss steps. So a lot of times I have my instructions all printed out so that I remember that I'm looking at them, and then I just give them to them, because then your students have an example of, your steps on how to do this, and they can refer to it later if they want to make it again. And you can always, almost every time I have done templates where I've sent them out ahead of time, people come and they haven't got them printed out, or they haven't got the, uh, or they forgot it or whatever. So it's a good idea to also stick it in the chat so that people will have that, they can take it out of the chat and print it if they need it. So I like to list the step-by-step instructions, instruct which pages to print out. If you're like me and you give them a whole bunch of way more information than they actually really need, if they only need to print out page 7, then great, print out page 7. Include a supply list and any resources for buying specialized supplies. And then all you have to do is, after you've got the thing put together, is save it as a PDF and then send it to the people that are registered students. Okay.
Wendy, do you have any thoughts about sending people templates versus not, or before, after?
Well, if they need it to do a step-by-step if they need it to do a step-by-step thing, then I like to give it to them ahead of time. The only problem with that is I have seen it where people will just make assumptions about it, and they'll think, oh, I'm going to get ahead and I'm going to print it all out and cut it all out ahead of time. And there may be some reason why you don't want it printed out, or you don't want it all cut out ahead of time. You might want to give them some instruction ahead of time. So it, but I do think it's helpful to have it. And if they get ahead on you and go ahead and do something that's wrong, usually you can say, well, print out another one and start over, I guess. But I think, if you say print this out, but don't start cutting, if it's important, I guess you could do that. But good question. All right. So yay, you've got students signing up. That is always an exciting feeling. There is nothing better than having people actually register for your class and know that they're interested in what you're doing. And that makes it all worthwhile. That's why we're doing this. So you need to acknowledge each registration with a follow-up email and let them know that they've been registered. And you're going to give them a link at that time. Distribute any supply lists or printable items in advance, like what we were just talking about. Make sure that they do get that Zoom link, and then you're going to send a reminder either on the date or like maybe the day before. Like if you've got an early morning class, you might want to do it the night before, or an afternoon class, do it that morning, so that everybody can easily find that. And then share a contact number for texting on the day if they are unable to log in, either yours or that or the tech host, in case somebody has some problems. So, but I really want to say thank you to all of you guys for signing on to attend this, because it really is helping me to get some good feedback. And I love that that Gap is doing this. We're going to get into some tech talk in a minute here, but before we do that, I'm just wondering if anybody has any questions for what I have talked about so far. Is there anything that's come up that you have a comment on or question, and then we can kind of answer those now or?
Randall has something he dropped into the chat
Okay.
about teaching, and I've been watching the chat. I haven't seen a lot of responses, but Sarah said that she had used Eventbrite for her improv workshops and that it's good. But maybe uh, I put into the chat that if people had questions, they could drop them into the chat. But um, uh, maybe I should say that right now, and also say that it's we're about an hour in. So
Yeah, I was just doing a time check here and I think I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. So again, if you end up with any questions, don't worry, just go ahead and interrupt and we'll get it done. Don't fear the gear. You can do as fancy of a presentation as you want. And if you don't have good content, if it's not captivating and showcasing what you want to teach, then it's really not gonna be as good. So don't worry about having fancy gear. You can do this in a really simplified way, and that's what we're going to talk about next. I'm gonna give you some of my hacks coming up here. Now, um, you've got 3 different views that you're going to be showing people. I'm going to show you the talking head version of it. So you have like what you have when you're just having a person on the screen. Then you have your down camera where you're actually doing your demos, and then you have screen shares. So these are sort of the 3 different things that I would like to demonstrate now. People like seeing faces, and it is your way that you're going to connect with people. So I think it's really important that at some time during your presentation, you are connecting with people directly. And it gives you that opportunity to sort of not be this sort of disembodied head where if you have if you're just showing a demonstration or you're just talking on a screen like I've been doing going through this presentation, I think people kind of lose the connection a little bit. So I do think it's important to do that. And if you're camera shy, then just do a little bit at the beginning. I mean, at the beginning of this presentation, we just had the gallery view. That's pretty low stress, but people were at least able to see me. So get your camera on, make sure people can see you and connect. And it is best. I don't always do it, but it is best if you can get your eye up into the actual. If you're using a laptop, looking into the green dot there. And I am, one thing I'm doing is I do have a sheet here that has notes of some things that I want to make sure that I'm presenting to you today. It's definitely better to not have it down where you're just going to see the top of my head. So you'll have to forgive me. I am occasionally looking over to check my notes to make sure I'm not forgetting to say something. But when you're doing this type of a presentation, I do think it's important to at least have your face in there at the very least at the beginning, and then come back at the end, so that people can connect with you. So now I'm going to switch it over to spotlighting the down camera. I just needed to have something in here, and I've been working on this little Canada links, so I put that in there for you. And
love this link.
getting this view. What did you say?
I just want to say that I love the links. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. Well, I thought he was a good choice for this particular group. But the thing about the down camera is that getting this view is absolutely vital to being able to demonstrate your art techniques. So there are fancy apps and camera setups, but what the down and dirty one that we are using today is just putting the phone itself on a stand and then inviting my cell phone to the Zoom meeting. So that's why it has its own little square on Zoom. And the important thing is to not use your audio. because as Jerry and I were setting this up at the beginning, if you don't have the audio, you have to figure out how to get that audio turned off, because otherwise you get an echo that is really awful. But one thing about it, your space is tight. I mean, this isn't even that big a piece and it barely fits in here. But you'll notice that I have a cutting mat set up, and there's different ways of doing this, but I set it up with a cutting mat taped down. Sometimes I'm not so obvious, but I want you to see this tape, because you don't have a lot of room. If you want people to actually be able to see the techniques of you, working and cutting on something, you've got to be uptight. But that means that you don't have very much room this way. So putting it on something that's stable, that is not going to move around, is a good way to keep you in frame. Otherwise, I might be cutting on it and then just gradually wander out, because it's much more comfortable to be working on it over here than it is to be working on it way out here. So just be cognizant to stay in frame when you're doing that. So then screen sharing, which I just did, is a way to keep everybody engaged during your class. It's a really useful feature on Zoom that allows you to present really important information. You can present videos or whatever you want. You can do PowerPoint style presentations, which is essentially what we're looking at today. You can do a slideshow of your finished art. You can do a pre-recorded video demo. You can show some websites that are related to the topic that you're teaching. Pinterest boards are great on this. I love doing that. So if you've got some ideas, that you can throw them into a special Pinterest board and then show it on a screen share, that's nice and easy. And then maybe a PDF or something. If you have made a PDF showing how you're going to do your project, you can put it in that way. That is the three different views that you see. I'm gonna put you down behind the curtain here so you can see, like, this is actually where I'm sitting right now at this moment. Things aren't exactly set up quite like they are in this photograph, but I want to go through this and show you some of the things that I do. This stuff is not all required, but and I'll
That's a
break it
lot of
down
stuff
more
that is not
in
on
the
the
what's that, Jerry?
That's a lot of stuff that is not shown on the screen.
I know, right? Um, there's a lot that I kind of put together that is making this happen, but it doesn't have to be all of this stuff, and I'll break it down in future slides. But this is how I personally do it at this point in time, and I have changed over time, but this is how I set it up, and there are definitely fancier options. But this is what my kit includes about right now. So a laptop. All right, number one is I'm using a laptop, which is my main camera. I'm using a it looks like this. It's this thing is holding my iPhone. So number two and number three are essentially, the phone is on a thing that's made by Canvas, and it's a phone stand that has a light on it. So, but you can jerry rig all sorts of other things. Number four is a table, a sturdy table or desk. I have done this before on a rickety little folding table, and it makes everything wiggle. Lighting for my face is number five. So I do have soft boxes that I'm using. I have these for photographing my artwork. I got them on Facebook Marketplace for super cheap. But they're not fancy, but they do work well for doing sort of general lighting. And then I have the lighting for my hands. I also actually have a spotlight here for my hands if I'm doing something that I don't want to have a lot of shadows on, if I want in addition to the down light that I get from the ring light. And I have a painted background on a stand, which is back behind me here. And it's the same one in the picture as what's behind me today. And I have a clock that is supposed to be keeping me keeping me on track to make sure, because even though there's one on my computer, it's helpful to just have an analog clock. That's just me. An Ethernet cable over here is an Ethernet cable that is making sure I've got a good connection. And lastly is a big smile, because a lot of things can just go awry sometimes. And if you just keep smiling, it's all going to be fine. So these are my top 5 hacks for jury rigging this. So uh, regarding lighting, you can make do with what you have, but do plan to use artificial lighting because gloomy days happen. I was at one point all set up to do a podcast, and I was had used natural light to figured out the time of day it was going to be, was going to show all my stuff. And that morning it was thundering and lightning. It was like nighttime out, and you could barely see what I was doing. And so artificial lighting is your friend, because even if it's a beautiful sunny day, the day you're planning it, it may not be when you're going to present it. Floor lamps and architect's lamps are often available at secondhand stores and on Facebook Marketplace. Don't hesitate to experiment with new bulbs to enhance their appearance. So you might just, if you look in this photograph, you'll see some rickety old lights that I got. I use these all the time, and I literally got them at a secondhand store. Piles of books and strong boxes can elevate your laptop to an ideal height. It's much better to have it lifted up a little bit, I have found. So like even today, I'm actually using these same 2 boxes right here because they're the perfect height and size to keep my laptop up a little larger, a little higher. Mark the boundaries of your workspace for the camera using tape or Post-it notes to ensure that you remain centered in the frame. I talked a little bit about that before when I was showing you the down camera. I have at certain times used maybe rulers or put a pencil or something in there and then absent-mindedly moved it. So I highly recommend something like tape because it'll keep you honest. The only thing about it is that regardless of what you're doing, if you're doing that or you're using a ring light with a camera mount on it, whatever you do, even just a regular tripod, don't mount it to your desk that you're demonstrating on, because if you, now mine is a very sturdy metal desk and it's probably fine, but if it's not, it'll jiggle. So it's really helpful to just mount this thing onto something else so that your down camera is mounted on anything except the desk you're actually using. I can't really help you a lot with microphones. I'm using today, I am literally using the microphone that's in the laptop, and that's it. If you've ever searched for microphones for teaching on Zoom, you get this like huge amount of options. I have tried a bunch of wireless lavalier style microphones like this guy's wearing over here, and I can tell you that none of them have significantly improved my sound. And I always end up, they either break or I lose them, or I just have gotten frustrated with them. And if it's important to you that you sound really super professional on your Zoom class, then by all means go out and get the best you can afford. But the cheapy, $30, $40, $50 ones, I think I've spent as much as $100 on them and never really found anything that I particularly thought was great. But I do, I have a confession in that I really, really wish that I could have a fancy setup like this and have my voice sound all nice and rich. But I did do a podcast with an art organization about 18 months ago. And I walked into their recording studio and they had really super duper fancy microphone. And I was like, oh my God, this makes my voice sound so much better. And I love this. And it's great. And you know what? They never, ever actually published that podcast that I did I did a whole hour presentation with them, and they never even put it out there. So this you can file that under better done than perfect. So, But I do actually dream about having something really fancy. But right now I'm just relying on the built-in mic on my laptop. So, but
So
do make sure that you do make sure that you mute your second device. That's the one thing that I already talked about that, but you got to make sure that that other device, if you're doing a down camera with a phone or something, make sure that's muted. Otherwise, you're going to get horrible feedback, and that's definitely no good.
Wendy,
Yeah,
I just wanted to say I dropped in into the chat one of the like one that I found a while ago that's a blue snowball. I mean, like at the time people were suggesting it for podcasts, but I have actually found it helpful, especially when I had my old laptop, which was did not have such a great audio pickup, and it did help, and it was
excellent.
to use. You could just kind of like plug it into the USB port.
Time to talk about backgrounds. My suggestion is to find a background that isn't too cluttered. It will help you stand out in the Zoom grid. If you look at this particular Zoom grid, you'll see my blue background in here. I'm trying not to, you know, since I'm leading this particular discussion, I want people to be able to find my square, you know, and so the blue background that I have, I did find online under, it took me forever to find this. It's dbackdrop.com, but you can search backdrops or background stands to find other options. Just a plain wall works well. In my opinion, bookcases and knickknacks can be kind of distracting. I have sometimes done it. Sometimes I put like the projects we're working on or something like if I'm doing some Halloween thing, I'll put Halloween decorations. But honestly, I think the best bet is to keep it kind of clean back there. You can also make a digital graphic. Like if you look at this digital graphic that I did when I was hosting the crafty hours. Um, but then when you try to show something, you can see I'm trying here to show this butterfly and it's really tricky, and it also makes this weird halo outline around you, which I think looks kind of strange. And ultimately, I mean, I know some people like to put their work back there behind them. I personally think it's better just to keep it clean, but that's my suggestion, and you do you. Space checklist. Let's look at this as a what you kind of want to make sure you've got everything together before you teach your class. So ensure that your camera angles capture everything that you want to display. Organize your tools and supplies within easy reach. You can see I've got my tools like in the lid to a box so that I can keep track of where things are, because otherwise, particularly if you're giving your class in a place that isn't your studio or where you don't know where things are, like I always clear off my desk and it's a different space than when I actually work, so sometimes I lose track of things. It's helpful to have them kind of wrangled. Keep small parts for demonstrations securely contained. In this case, I'm actually using an egg carton for all of these different parts of this demo that I was going to do. And have your script or notes accessible, ideally at eye level. I talked about that a few minutes ago, that pretty much try not to be reading off your script if it's, you know, making just be the top of your head show. Mark your workspace boundary with tape or a small cutting mat, and ensure that your lighting is adequate and avoid harsh shadows. Sometimes that's tricky with the down camera, so make sure you check that and make sure that you are getting you're not that your hand isn't making a big shadow on what you're working on, so that people will be able to easily see it when they're looking at it online. Okay, so we are pretty much on time, so I just did a time check, and I do have a demo coming up that I want to do on Zoom. It's going to be a real basic demo about getting the lay of Zoom land, but I'll read through the slide here first, just so you kind of know what things you would need to know about Zoom, and then will kind of tool around on it actually on the screen. So learn where the features are to know where your participants are, know how to let people into the waiting room, how to mute and unmute people. And this should say, I changed this because I thought I was wrong. This should say spotlight. Spotlight a person versus gallery view. Um, change your name on Zoom to indicate how you want to be addressed. How to open the chat, and how people can give reactions, and screen sharing, how to get your visual material set up ahead of time so that when you switch to the screen sharing from the gallery view and back and forth, things are where you expect them to be. You don't have to go searching for them. And then how to start and end the recording. But the important thing is try not to get too flustered. Most people are pretty forgiving about people fumbling around on Zoom. I think a lot of times people want to give their presentation absolutely perfectly, and sometimes, things might go awry, and it's okay. People are very forgiving. Now, when you do sign up for a Zoom Pro account, they do have tutorials. I know they've got a ton of stuff on their website, but they also offer like an actual Zoom session that they'll do with people that are new to the Pro account, or at least they did when I signed on. And that is actually pretty helpful. So, and then practice ahead of time with a friend or with your tech host to make sure that you're comfortable doing things. So the important thing to understand is that there's some stuff that is not,
So this is your what it looks like on your machine right now,
yeah,
regardless of what we've got, because individuals who are watching a Zoom presentation can do different things with their own view that's not necessarily what you're seeing as the presenter, right?
right. And that's the confusing thing, because sometimes people think, why am I seeing this particular view of it? And so like you can switch it to gallery view. Um, in fact, I think I'm just going to leave it on gallery view for this, but so the okay, so we've got participants here. Let me get rid of that. Okay, so we've got the participants over here.
Mhm.
And I was gonna, part of my problem is that I've got this down here and I can't see it. There it is. Okay, so down on the bottom bar of your Zoom, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but we just want to kind of whiz through this real quick so that if anybody is sort of new to Zoom or doesn't feel comfortable doing this, you might pick up some things that you weren't aware of before. So participants, you can see there are 15 that are on right now. And when you click on that, it'll open up this window over here that shows all the participants.
And you can get rid of that window?
Yep. Yep. You can just, and that gave me the chat, which
Mhm.
is perfect because that was the next thing I wanted to show was the chat. But when you do have participants open, that's also how you can let people in and out of the waiting room. So when you're hosting, you will have it'll call up a thing that says that there's somebody in your waiting room and you have to let them in. Um, and when also with the participants, you can invite people, and you can invite people from the participant window if you need to. If somebody's having trouble getting into your class, it may be easier just to go right to invite and invite them in directly. I have found that to be helpful sometimes. But you can mute and unmute. I could mute all of you. It's as a host, you are getting a little bit different view than what you get as a participant. Um, and then you can go in under, I'm going to get rid of this again, and you can go in underneath people's names, and there's an opportunity to add a spotlight. So I can make Jerry be that spotlight, and I can come in here and remove the spotlight for the down camera So you can spotlight multiple people, and over here it says remove the spotlight. That puts us back to the default, which is the gallery view. You can change your name. There's I think that's right on the, like on this, it'll be rename. So we could rename down camera to something else if we wanted to. That's how you do that. And then you can go in and open the chat, which would be just clicking on this. And I already had it open, so it's still here. And so you can see all the things that, oh, this is great. I haven't had a chance to look at this yet. I'm looking forward to reading through those. But the other thing is reactions. So down here on the bottom, again, there's all these reactions, and these are pretty funny actually, because you can recognize hand gestures if you have that set up for people to recognize that. Then if a person is gonna wave or give a thumbs up, it'll actually appear on the screen for you. So like, Jerry, why don't you give us a wave there? See if we can make it work. Can you do it this way? So oh, there we got, here we got, all right, excellent. We got the clappy hands. There we go. Excellent. So you can do all kinds of silly stuff like that, which is kind of good, because if people are like say you've got somebody in a class and you want to know when everybody's all done, then you can say when everybody's done, just give us a thumbs up, or and I think the thumbs up goes away pretty quickly. You can have them raise their hand and when everybody gets done, or you can have them raise a hand for questions or something like that. So then screen sharing, the thing about screen sharing is you want to get your visual material set up and practice switching and back and forth between the screen sharing and the gallery view. But that's the screen share is down here, and if you have it set up so that only one can do it or multiple participants, make sure that people have the ability to do it. And then I'm actually not going to be able to demonstrate how to do that because this is a screen share, but you can see that it will show you what you're seeing. So this is kind of relatively new, I think, the being able to see what's on the screen share, which I think is super helpful to be able to actually see it, rather than saying, are you seeing my screen now? Like we used to do before they had that. So anyway, and then the pause and stop recording is down over here. That's an important one to get to know. So that's pretty much it. Unless there's any if people have questions about any of that, my biggest recommendation is to just get in there and tool around and click on things. Do a Zoom meeting with yourself, you and your phone, like for example, and then go back and forth and just fiddle around with it and see what happens.
So do other people have experience with Zoom, or like tips or hacks that you want to share? If you want to put those in the chat, that would be cool.
So that was, as I said, the Zoom presentation was pretty rudimentary. Maybe there's something you might not have known about that you learned there, but you'll learn a whole lot more literally just fiddling around with it yourself. And it's one of those things where they change it a lot too. So if you're watching this video later, you will discover that you may discover that things that I was showing aren't even current anymore. So make sure that you're looking at a current version of it. But now we're going to do
Wendy, before you, I just wanted to jump in. Yang had a question. When using a second device, like your phone for the down camera, does it need to have the Zoom app installed, or can it join just through a link?
it's mine, I think, is just joined through a link like
I think
anybody else,
same.
would be. You know, it literally just acts like another person who's invited to the meeting. So let me tell you about the importance of updates. As I said, sometimes things have changed. Um, I was really excited about doing a class. I was going to have a lot of people on that class, and by coincidence, I was having a Zoom with my brother and sister. We do the sibling thing once a month. And I said, when I get done with this, I'm doing this big Zoom class. I'm super excited about it. I was telling him about it. And I said, look at this. I have this fancy camera. It was a camera app, and I was so excited about it. Like, here's this camera app, and check this out. And I turned it on, and it was completely blank. And I come I was horrified because in about an hour's time I was going to have 80 people on Zoom that were going to watch this thing, and I had no down camera. And so I discovered that the night before, me trying to be really smart about all this and be on top of everything, I had updated my computer. But when I did the computer update, it no longer recognized the Epoch camera that I had all set up and ready to go. So this literally was hours before the thing, and I had to do the down and dirty version, which is the second phone thing, and it works fine. And the Epoch camera was great because I didn't have to have two squares in the Zoom grid used up with myself and my down camera. But and I loved it. It worked flawlessly when it worked. But then I researched it after the fact, and yes, lo and behold, with the new updates, it was no longer going to work on my particular laptop. So um, I think it's really important to test out everything. In a more recent thing, I last week was looking through this presentation that I'm giving you today, and about 4 images were missing, and they were just not in there. And so check your stuff the day before is is my is my uh is my experience. Make sure that you log in and make sure that you've got the current updates. But if you have updated, make sure things work. So test your equipment, and then it's always nice to confirm the number of students so that you have some idea how many people are going to be there. So if you know that there are some people that are perhaps going to arrive late or something, you can make accommodations for them. So that's what I recommend doing the day before. On the actual day of, um, plan for you and your tech host to log in early. It's always a good idea to kind of, make sure that the audio is correct. That's one thing that we had to tweak this morning. We were having a little bit of audio issues that we needed to fix, and make sure everything's in place, and then it's a little bit more relaxed when you start rather than rushing in at the last minute. Now, people totally give me grief about this second point here on the day, but if you're going to be showing your hands in your down camera, and you're an artist or perhaps a gardener, or like me, both, this is just a little reminder to clean your fingernails because, well, I do not have the most attractive nails. I keep them really short for the ceramics work that I do. They often are pretty grubby. And this morning I was working in my paper studio, and I had adhesive and black kozo paper all over stuck to my hands. So just might want to remember to clean that up so that anything that could be distracting, it's nice to not have that be in the frame. Set up your desktop for the visuals for your screen share. I like to just get every other app that I'm not using off of my computer so that when you go to select your screen share, you have fewer to look at. And then just remember to relax and have fun. And I have to tell myself this all the time: expect some jitters. Remember, you're not excited. You're excited. You're not nervous. So it is common to be a little bit nervous about doing a presentation if this isn't your normal thing that you do all the time. But then once you get going doing it, it's actually pretty darn fun.
Wendy, do you have any suggestions for finding a tech host to work with?
Well.
Laura,
You
I'm
know,
not laughing at you. I'm just like laughing at the question because it's like so.
well, well, with Gap, I've been very lucky that you have been willing to be the tech host for me. When I was working with Molly, we did do somewhere she was the tech host. So um, it's ask around, talk to your network of people and see if there's anybody. I have a friend of mine here that I was telling her I was going to be doing this, and this was before we found out that you were going to be able to host for me, and she says, "Oh, I know how to do that. I could do that for you." So I mean, you'd be surprised. There, you give a person a chance to help out. People are usually, if they have the skills to be able to do it, you
Isn't
know.
it, this like plays into my commercial versus non-commercial thing, but I was just going to say like as of yet, there's not really any professional guild of tech hosts out there. Right?
Well, maybe you
Or
should
maybe
do
there is. I don't know.
maybe you should do a class like this on being a tech host, and then we can get more folks to help out in that. All righty.
I suppose you just have to be like you just have to be aware of the things that Wendy's saying though. That's what I would say most is that you don't have to do a lot, and so it can just be a friend, just somebody who's willing to walk through it with you,
Yep. Yeah, yeah, definitely someone who knows you well enough to be able to help out a little bit, and it really it doesn't have to be somebody who's like super high tech savvy necessarily. They just need to be your like partner in it.
Okay,
So,
thank you. That helps. I was thinking it had to be someone who was very tech savvy in it, but it sounds more of a just
No, we
wingman
no,
watching your back
I
for
think
you.
just having some, even if it's somebody that has, maybe they're comfortable working on Zoom, but they aren't an artist. And, they would be able to help out and would love to be able to do that. I mean, I think a lot of people like to help. That's a common thing. So ask a friend.
At
And
suppose
work,
there maybe the same person you could ask to do a practice session with, someone that you're, maybe a family member or something.
at work, we call this separating your content from your process. So you, Wendy, are providing the content, right?
Yep,
And then you're having somebody else manage the process. And then if you're able to do that, then it allows each of you to concentrate on those because they're two separate things.
absolutely.
It's two different jobs, and it can totally be done by one person. It's just really nice if you can get it to be two people.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I have done many classes where I haven't had a tech host, and particularly if it's, uh 10 people or something, it's not hard. And that's the other point, and I think I bring this up somewhere else, but I'll say it now too, is that if you are going to have a tech host, be prepared that you may not have your tech host. At least know how to do the basic stuff yourself, so that if the morning that your class is going to be, your tech host calls you up and says, "I've got strep throat and I can't do this," then you're not going to be left in the lurch. You'll be able to actually do it yourself if you have to. So that is an important part too. All right, so we are going to let's break the ice. We're hosting our workshop now. So this is in real time here. So begin at the scheduled time. There is nothing that annoys me more than joining a Zoom workshop and discover that they actually started the workshop 15 minutes early. And I'm not always the most punctual person, but if I arrive right on time and they're 15 minutes into the presentation, I feel cheated. So my experience is I'm much happier from a participant's point of view if they actually start on time. And admit the participants from the waiting room, and like we did today, just admit them all at the same time, and then as the others come in, then you can do that because people typically will come a little bit early. Um, but then some will come later. Request that everyone mutes their microphones. That just gets rid of, you may have to have your tech host go in and actually manually mute someone if you happen to have somebody that is not aware that, they're, having a conversation or a radio playing or something in the background and that is bothering the group. Kick off the meeting by informing that the attendees that it is being recorded. Um, and advise them that they can turn off their camera if they prefer not to be recorded, which I actually didn't do today, but
I forgot. I'm
but
sorry. That's also my job.
so it is always, good to just mention that to people in case you've got people that don't want to be recorded. Click the record button and save the file either on your computer or to the cloud. I always do it to my computer because I like to fill my computer up apparently, but Jerry says that she does it to the cloud, so they both work. Introduce yourself and your tech host and any other collaborators that are present, which we did today. And then start by reviewing your supplies. And this is really important because if you tell everybody what their supplies are going to be, there's inevitably somebody that forgot to get their stuff. And then while you're kind of going through the list of supplies, they can go through and say, oh gosh, I got to get my scissors or whatever. And then present your project. Now, people are going to be antsy to get into the project. This is one of the best things that I have learned in doing all of these is that introduce yourself briefly. There will be time to talk more about yourself later when you want to fill time. One of the first workshops I took back in 2017, it was my very first paper cutting workshop, and the presenter spent 3/4 of the workshop talking about herself and didn't give us the scissors until like way at the end. And what I learned from that, which, I don't regret it because she got me into paper cutting again, but I did learn from that if you've got a group of people that are there to make a project, they're going to want to start working on that project as soon as possible. So don't give them a big long bio at the beginning if you can avoid it. It's better to just kind of give them the basics, and you can talk more about that later. Present a clear, concise tutorial. Demonstrate the techniques and concepts of your project. If they'll be making art along with you, try to get them creating as soon as possible. I was just saying about that. Tell them exactly what they're going to do. For example, watch me demonstrate, then I will let you have time to work on it. If you aren't clear about that, you may have some people that work ahead and lose focus. If you give them a template to work on, they may just start cutting away on that template, even though there was parts of it that you wanted them to cut differently, or maybe there was something you wanted to explain before they cut it, and they'll be all super overachievers and try and get it all cut ahead of time, and then you'll discover that that they've maybe missed something because of that. So be real clear about it. Like if you're going to do a demonstration, do your demonstration and then give them time to work. But at the same time, remember that it's hard for students to watch what you're doing on the screen and do their work at the same time. So this took me a while to kind of get used to that, that I would be demonstrating and I'm thinking I'm like working along with them, but they're not going to be looking at me on the camera and looking at themselves working. So be real clear about having demo time versus work time. And provide some constructive feedback on the work if people want it. A gentle reminder here is to be kind. Usually people are taking these classes for fun, and that kind of goes without saying, but you don't want anybody to come out feeling like they were ignored or put down, or that maybe they were feeling competitive with other people, and so just be kind and supportive, and give people a lot of positive feedback, because that's what they want to hear, and that's what makes it fun for everybody. So what do you do about people that have questions during your demonstration or during your class? Well, I think questions are great. You can plan for Q&A breaks during the presentation, either you can plan them out and then maybe have one at the end. Maybe certain parts of it, you might want to stop and ask for questions. You can encourage engagement and participation with those questions, because I think that's where you really get some good feedback as to how it's going. You can call on people who appear to be ready to move on or seem to be stuck. I try to be careful, like if somebody's actually having a problem, I don't want to call them out and say, are you having a problem? Because maybe that might make them feel uncomfortable. But sometimes, you know, if you can tell that they're having an issue, you might be able to address that without making them feel bad. You can invite people to unmute and ask questions, which I did with this particular class. But if you don't want to be interrupted, if that's just not your style and you prefer not to be interrupted, then direct them to put their questions in the chat. And a lot of people actually prefer to put their questions there. I think they're feeling either shy about saying it, or they just don't want to interrupt or whatever. But make sure that you are monitoring the chat, which I am not doing because I fortunately have Jerry to do that for me today. But
I was gonna, I put my hand up. So that we have like a 9 minute, 9 minutes. And also Debbie was asking, do you have your computer on gallery view as you teach to see how the students are following along? Are their heads up? Are they working and so on? How do you do that?
Well, I'm usually, I have it on, I don't have, the short answer is I don't have them on gallery view. I have them, I'm usually seeing just what I want other people to be seeing. You know, I have the spotlight on the main thing that I'm showing. But yeah, I mean, if you have a lot of people, that can be tricky. I mean, like when it's the way I've got it set up right now, I'm looking at the presentation and I'm only seeing 6 slots, of which 2 of them are myself or my down camera. So I don't know. What do other people do?
Hi, this is Debbie. I'm the one who asked the question. I've done a few demos for San Diego Book Arts, just,
Yep.
you know, free demos before a meeting or during the meeting. And, you know, the tech hosts are the ones who are watching what people are doing. And I'll say, so, you know, are we ready to move along or whatever? And then they'll give me an idea. And I have to do another demo in next month. And I was thinking of maybe setting up another, like having an iPad with the gallery view so I could be looking at that. But then I'm like, oh, that just seems so complicated. Now I got to be watching myself and then so I just wondered how you did it. That's why.
Yeah, no, but it's giving me pause to think about it because yeah, I think asking people to, I mean, people have to speak up if they literally have a question or a problem or something.
Right.
But sometimes you have to kind of draw them out. And it might be easier to just draw them out than to.
It's possible to just kind of slide over, you know, like you've got everybody along the top when you're looking here, and you can just kind of slide over and check in on people.
Yep.
If it's not too large, which this group isn't too large to do that, it's just 2 pages. And so,
Right.
And when I'm teaching kids, especially, I will put it on gallery when we've got work time so that everybody can, and then I can also pin people or spotlight them when they've got something to show, or, you know, if 2 people want to talk or ask a question, I can spotlight them together.
Yep, that's a good point. I do like doing the double spotlight like that.
Shruti has her hand raised.
Do you have a question?
So I just wanted to add some points to the discussion. So
Yes.
I have been conducting workshops on Zoom platform itself, So what I do is during the workshops, I have a capacity of maybe 10 to 15 students, for example. So you can spotlight or pin maybe 4 to 5 participants at a time. So what we do is when I'm teaching, my screens are spotlight or pinned to the screen. And when I'm done teaching, when the participants are doing their work, just for a few seconds, I pin maybe 4 to 5 along with each other, and then I observe what they are doing. Because since it is a cutter, it is a bit risky. So we just need to have maybe a closer look as to what they're doing. So what I do is I just spotlight them 5 to 6 people at a time. So that is a good amount to see clearly on the screen,
Mhm.
and then shift to the next 5 people. So
I
yeah.
love it. That is a great idea, particularly if you're asking him to do some work and you're not having to actively do your demonstration at that
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, at
That-
that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. Thank you. That helps a lot.
Yeah. Thank you.
We're not too bad on time here, but let's talk a little bit about dead air and the parting shots. So it's natural for there to be silences as people are working. Um, if you incorporate interactive elements into the workshop, you can keep students engaged, and you can also foster more interaction between the students too. So one thing I like to do is I like to have, I'm really into fun facts and history and stuff like that. So if I'm teaching about, like when I was teaching about Poe's The Raven, I had all these Raven facts and all these facts about Poe. And so you can do quizzes, you can do trivia, you can do fun facts and history. You can, at that point, talk more about your own bio, talk about yourself a little bit more because you were brief at the beginning. You can have discussions between people. You can let someone who's ready to move on have the floor. I had one class that I taught was I was teaching them to do butterflies. They were doing paper butterflies. And one of the students was actually done ahead of everybody else. And I could tell she was kind of antsy. And earlier she'd been talking about going down to Mexico and seeing the butterflies. So I just gave her the floor. I just said, why don't you tell the class a little bit more about your trip to Mexico, and let them have the floor so that kind of gave them something to do while the rest of the students were catching up. But do be aware that if you are too entertaining with how you're filling that silent work time, some people might get distracted and actually stop working, which sort of defeats the whole purpose. So just be aware of that one. Parting shots. So about 15 minutes before the end of class, which would have been about 12 minutes ago, give a time check and prepare to conclude your presentation. So address any remaining questions, invite everyone to share a photo of their finished artwork for social media, ensuring you tag them and give proper credit. I love to have people send me photos of the completed piece because sometimes they're not done at the end of your class. They may have some finishing touches to put on, so let them do that. And then say, take the picture. This is like the classic picture. Everybody holds up their artwork, and then you do a screenshot. And that I think is a really fun kind of conclusion to giving your class on Zoom. And then if you can, I think it's just nice manners to be the last one to exit the Zoom meeting, just in case there's somebody that has something that they wanted to discuss at the very, very end. This is what to do after your class is done. This is the mop-up. So after your Zoom recording is converted, it can be edited for YouTube, allowing students to revisit the material. Send a thank you email that includes the class screenshot, that one we were just talking about, and the YouTube link if you have it, and a note to encourage any feedback. And share and tag any student work that people have emailed to you or messaged to you on your social media platforms. And I love putting it in my newsletter. That's always a fun thing to do. And when you get done with your class, take notes for next time, what went well and what you learned about teaching your art class on time. So I'm gonna let you have a little Q&A right here. We're almost done. I'm just gonna do a little summary at the end. But if there's anything else that, Jerry, is there anything in the chat that I need to know about? Any
Yeah,
other?
Randall just put in a feedback form for this is for determining winners of the Gap Teaching Awards. So if people could give their reactions to the class and Wendy's presentation and so on, not to put you on the
Great.
on tenterhooks, but but if everybody could give their responses, that would be great. There's a
Awesome.
link there.
That's good. Nobody told me that was coming up. That's all right. That's okay. But do take one of my paper cutting classes. I like to think that might be the smoother thing. It is a little different for me to be giving a class in this particular format, but I'm doing my best. All right, so this is, I've just told you a whole bunch of different stuff, but it really doesn't need to be as complicated as it may seem at first blush. We've explored many topics, but launching your art teaching sessions on Zoom can be simplified into a few essential elements. So, with just a few common devices, an internet connection, a creative idea, content is everything really, and an audience, you can easily assemble a class. Make sure to leverage your network by collaborating with a mentor. You don't need to create everything from the ground up. So even if you don't feel real comfortable doing it by yourself, find a friend to do it with. It'll be great. Organize your class materials and rehearse in advance to ensure a seamless presentation. And this varies from person to person. Some people like to be more everything all planned out ahead of time. Some people like to be more freeform about it, and that's fine. You do you. Spread the word. Promoting your class will attract more students and generate valuable feedback. So I've said it several times already, but I'm sharing the tips and tricks I've picked up along the way with my approach to conducting workshops. But above all, just remember to be yourself. Embrace your unique style. So this is a little information about me. I'm in Jamestown, New York. There's my email address. There's my Instagram. I would love it if you'd follow me on Instagram. Here is my website. And on my website, there is a way to sign up for my newsletter, which is called Snippets. So if you go to my website, it'll take you right to you'll get a little invitation to join Snippets. I would love to connect with you once a month on the full moon. And your feedback is greatly appreciated. I would love to hear your thoughts on this presentation. And thank you very much for your attention. If you are not already a GAP member, go to papercutters.org. I would be really, really happy to know that some of the people that watched this today would be so inclined to join the GAP group. The Guild of American Papercutters is an amazing group of people and lots of fun.